to the clouds. So, all right. I believe we're recording. Hey, friends, this is your friend. Well, I'm in my little classroom. Like I'm teacher Paige. I'm not teaching y'all anything tonight. I'm going to, or today, whenever you decide to watch this, I'm going to introduce you to my friend, Margaret Rollins. She's a fellow liver mom.
Hey guys.
And Margaret is, oh, my screen went a little blurry there. Anyway, she's a fellow liver mom, and we're going to dive in and talk about transplant stories. I feel like we're going to have a series of conversations with my transplant mom friends. And so, Margaret, go ahead and you introduce yourself and tell everybody, like, who are you and a little bit of backstory before we dive into talking all things Liverland.
Okay, that seems so broad, but my name is Margaret Rollins. I am originally from Water Valley, Mississippi, right outside of Oxford, Ole Miss. If you guys are SEC fans, you should probably know where that is. I graduated and I decided to venture out, and I went to our rival college, SEC college in the state. I went to Mississippi State University. That's where I met my husband, John Michael Rollins.
Did y'all meet in a class somewhere, or how did you meet?
We did not. He was in a fraternity. I was in a sorority. He was a couple years older than me, and we just kind of met through mutual friends and stuff. So
okay, all right. So you meet in college, and then
we met in college, and I was a education major. He was a finance major, and I graduated. Life was so great. Got, job at the place I wanted to teach at, where I student taught at, one of the best elementary schools in the state. I mean, life was so good.
So picture perfect.
So perfect.
How long after college did you get married?
A week after I graduated college.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you get married
out for a few years because he was older than me. So
okay. Yeah. All right. So you get married, and then how long before you guys started having kids?
We had our first child, Walker, our son, a day after our third wedding anniversary.
Oh, I had my son Cade the day after our fifth wedding anniversary. Oh, such a great little anniversary.
Yeah, we were in the hospital on our third wedding anniversary. We've done a lot of milestones in the hospital over the years.
Yes, you have. Okay, so you have Walker. Everything's hunky dory. All is well. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, okay, well, I need another one, right?
No, I did not say that. Adeline was my surprise. God gave me her baby. Awesome. Walker wasn't even a year old yet, and I found out I was expecting her. And
how many are they? 18 months apart?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Like 18 months and maybe a week and a half.
Okay.
Or 2 weeks, yeah. So yeah, they're very close in age.
Yeah, my first two are 18 months, or almost 18 months apart. So yeah.
That's why I don't have any more, because they're 18 months apart.
Oh man.
You're like a whole different breed there. Having more after two that close together.
Yeah. Well, it gets easier as they get older, in different ways, but it's hard. You're in the trenches. So how old are your kids now? I'm sorry, my dog is beating on the door upstairs.
That's fine. Walker's 5.5, and Adeline just turned 4.
Just turned 4. Okay. So when Adeline was born, what did you have, like a normal pregnancy and normal birth and all of that kind of stuff?
I did. Honestly, she was my easier pregnancy out of the two. My son was a pain in the rib cage, literally. I think he broke a few ribs. She was easy to carry. I didn't get as big with her. I didn't had all the feet swelling and stuff that I had with her. I kind of just attribute that to her being born in December and my son being born in May. It's hot. You don't want to be pregnant in May, but especially Mississippi. But so fine, normal pregnancy. She was born. She was actually due on December 20th and was born on December 6th. So she was early. I went in for a routine checkup. And they couldn't find the heartbeat because, that happens a lot of times when they're bigger. They just can't find it with a little Doppler. I guess it's called a Doppler, a little handheld machine. So we did an ultrasound, and, her heart was beating. She was doing her breathing practice, swallowing stuff, but she wasn't moving at all. And they sat there for probably 10 minutes like poking and trying to make her move and stuff, and she wasn't moving. So I mean, I didn't really understand like what was going on or anything, but she's like, that's kind of weird, she should move, when prompted. So the ultrasound tech walked out in the hallway and handed the doctor, the pictures, and said some medical lingo that I still don't know to this day what she said. She said, all right, well, we're having a baby today. And I'm like, what?
And so you're how many weeks at this time?
37.
Okay.
So I was, fine. Yeah. But she just wasn't moving. And, kind of looking back on it, it's almost like the first warning sign. I mean, obviously, you can have a child that doesn't move much in the womb and they don't have biliary atresia, but she was born and then, stayed really lethargic and slept a lot and all those, common biliary atresia baby stuff. So she just started out early, just being, lazy. But she was born by emergency C-section, and she was 7 pounds, I think 13 ounces. So
she's a good size.
They could have had my dates wrong, I don't know, but she was fine. I mean, she was deemed perfectly healthy, no issues, nothing.
Right.
At birth.
So for those that are maybe just you're watching this, I'm going to be sharing these on like our social media stuff. So for those that don't know, biliary atresia, this is how Margaret and I connected through this crazy liver disease. I know when our pediatrician first said that Corey had the biliary atresia, I'm like, what did you say? Like, I've never even heard of this before. Like, how do you even spell it?
Biliary atresia. Like, I butchered it the first time I ever tried to say the word.
Well, it's hard. I mean, and it's where the bile duct from the liver, it atrophies or it shrivels up, or some kids are, I want to say some are not born with, there's not even barely that bile duct, or they may not have a gallbladder. And so most of our kids, they get a surgery when they want to do the surgery under 10 weeks old, get where they reroute the small intestine and they attach it to the base of the liver and the stomach, and it gives the liver a way to drain. And for some kids, it works for a long time, but then for most kids, though, they will need a liver transplant by the time they're usually like around 2 years old. So that's kind of where Margaret and I and our stories started colliding. Now, my daughter Corey was I think she was, well, her transplant was in 2015. And when was Adeline born?
She was born in 16 and her transplant was in 18.
In 18. Okay. So we were a few steps ahead of the game. So Adeline, she's born, she's having some things, but you're like, I don't know really what's going on. So how old was she when she was first diagnosed with liver disease?
Well, when I first diagnosed her,
Dr. Google,
PhD, Google, MD, whatever you want to call me. Yeah. She was 2 days after we came home from the hospital. So she was about 4 or 5 days old.
Okay.
When the baby poop, I forget what it's called, that special M word where the poop's really dark at first.
Meconium, is that what it is? I think.
Sure. Sure.
Sounds good.
But when that goes away, if they're a breastfed baby, they're supposed to have that like peanut butter, oily peanut butter, seedy type.
Right.
Poop. And she was my second child. So I knew what poop looked like. I mean, I was up to my neck in poop. I still had, he was 18 months old. I knew I just knew that what was in her diaper was not right. And it was very, very pale yellow. I mean, it did have some color, but not much.
Right.
Immediately went to Google, pill poop newborn, first thing pops up, liver issues, biliary atresia, needed for a transplant, all that stuff. I told all my family, because it was right at Christmas, a little bit before Christmas. So I told all my family, like, hey, I think my baby has biliary atresia. And they all told me I was absolutely crazy. Like, I think they thought I needed to be committed because, I wasn't a first time mom, but a new mom, just all the scenarios go through your head and stuff. And you just get, you just worry yourself sick over nothing half the time. I mean, I can't tell you how many things I diagnosed my son with, who's perfectly healthy, when he was a kid.
Right.
It's almost like my subconscious always knew
that I
was going to be a medical mom, but I just didn't know how and where. But I, unfortunately I got the VA card. And so I recognized that something was wrong. It wasn't jaundice at birth. I mean, they did the Billy light on her forehead a few times and said, oh, well, she's, her total's kind of high, but it's not high enough to do anything about. It'll come down, as she has dirty diapers and, clear out the bilirubin and stuff.
Right.
But she wasn't jaundice enough or anything. She wasn't jaundice to the naked eye. She didn't need the Billy light or anything. So we went home, everything was fine. And then I noticed the diapers, reached out to our pediatrician, and it was kind of overlooked, and I mean, it's not her fault by any means, because she could see a million other babies, and she's probably not going to see another BA kid.
Right.
And my son had issues with my breast milk being like not fatty enough. So we kind of just went down that road to begin with, like, oh, or something, you're having the same issues you had with your breast milk before.
Right.
And then, but no testing was done. And then right around Christmas, I started getting really, really paranoid about it. And I reached out to my husband's boss's wife.
Okay. Was she a doctor?
She was a pediatric nurse practitioner at a clinic local here. And I reached out to her and told her that something was not right. I sent her a picture of the diaper. I sent her a picture of Adeline, and she's like, well, she doesn't really look jaundiced to me, but her diaper doesn't look right. So before even laying eyes on her, she sent us to the local ER to have blood work done.
Okay.
And all of that came back normal. I mean, even her liver enzymes, everything was fine. Her total bilirubin was like 5, which, I mean, at that point when she was a week or so old, it wasn't that high.
Right.
And so even after that, everything coming back normal, she still felt like something in her gut, was like in the nurse practitioner's gut. Her name's Amy. Like, I call her our angel. Like, she saved Adeline's life, like, hands down. Like, brings me to tears thinking about it. But like, one of my favorite people on the planet. But anyways, not gonna get off on a tangent about that. But she just felt like deep down in her gut, something just wasn't sitting right with her about it all. So she reached out to some pediatric GI specialist in Jackson, Mississippi, where we have our only children's hospital in the state. And they told her to rerun all the labs, but to split the billing. So the first time, I mean, as a BA liver mom, we all know you split the billing. Like, you don't look at the total doesn't tell you anything about the liver. So you have to get that direct billing. And so she sent us back to do repeat labs. And I think we had to go like 2 or 3 times in one day because the blood kept messing up when they sent it to the lab. And it was the day before New Year's Eve, so New Year's Eve, and she finally got the results back that the direct was high and the total was in fact normal. And she came over to my mother-in-law's house, and because we were there at the time because we were doing a late Christmas with them, and she took us down into my mother-in-law's basement into a bedroom and said, I've already talked to the specialist in Jackson, and I could tell it was bad. I mean, she was already crying. She's got like a heart of gold, and she said that the specialists in Jackson think it's highly probable biliary atresia. At that point, and all I had seen on Google was just horror stories. And so I literally, it was like a movie. I just fell on the floor, just like wailing, crying.
It's horrible when you get that news.
Awful.
It's just
Awful.
like, I don't know that anything can prepare you for what that's like to get a gut punch that somebody that you love and your child has something that you can't fix.
Yeah. And especially at that point, because when the diagnosis is so new, like you're not in Liverland yet. You haven't met the Pages and the Corys of the world that have the great stories and the success. You just see the the stories from the major hospitals that there's it's not a good disease to have, obviously.
Right. So did you think, like, whenever, by this time, I'm sure you'd been Googling a few things for a few days. Did you think that you were going to that she was actually going to need a liver? Did you, or were you like, oh, maybe the Kasai could work? Which kind of camp?
We definitely put all of our eggs in the Kasai basket because she wasn't even 2 weeks old when we had that conversation in my mother-in-law's basement.
Right.
So we were really hopeful that we had caught it really early.
Yeah.
But and unfortunately in Mississippi, like I said, we have one pediatric hospital. We have 0 hepatologists, which are actually liver specialists, as you know. They only have GI specialists. And the hospital that we originally went to, they do about 3 Kasai. They see about 2 to 3 Kasai patients a year. So very, very small amount of kids come through the hospital with biliary atresia. And as we know now, you know, a Kasai is only as successful as the surgeon performing it.
Mm-hmm.
The more Kasai is performed, more the skill is honed, and they're
Right.
able to, you know, perform, you know, a more quality surgery on your child.
And
So,
for those who are wondering what a Kasai is, the Kasai, it's named after a Dr. Morio Kasai, I think is his name. He's a physician out of Japan that discovered this treatment for biliary atresia kids.
Roux-en-Y surgery, Roux-en-Y.
Roux-en-Y, yes. It's medical terminology. You can look it up. Just Google it.
Yeah.
If you want.
Yeah. So we started at the pediatric hospital in our state. They did a lot of testing. The GI specialist was very, you know, just, this isn't a medical emergency, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, in my head, I'm like,
this is my baby.
I'm going to strangle you. Like, this is a medical emergency. Like, this is my baby. This is not your baby. This is my baby.
Yes.
You know how you get. And so they wouldn't perform a lot of the necessary testing to move forward with confirming it was biliary atresia. The biopsy that they did, they took, I want to say they said it was supposed to be back in 2 days. It took well over a week to come back. So we just had a lot of lost time there. And like you've said, like the time's so crucial before the Kasai, like the sooner, you know, just a matter of a week prior, we could be telling a whole different story. You know, she could have,
right.
you know, she could still have her native liver. But just a lot of time was lost. We didn't feel like we were getting the adequate care that we wanted at that point. Not because we didn't trust the doctor or the surgeon. It was just a smaller hospital. So just the turnaround time was so long on everything.
Right.
And we actually have a center that's bigger. That's the next state over in Alabama. And it's actually closer, like mileage wise and time wise, but we just started in our state. And so at that point we called into Alabama and said, we have a child that we think has biliary atresia. We've done most of the testing. We can't get a Kasai scheduled. But honestly, Jackson told us that the biopsy came back highly improbable biliary atresia.
Oh, wow.
So they didn't want to move forward with any more testing at that point. They said, we're abandoning the biliary atresia idea, and we're going to start genetic testing. And I said, so she doesn't have biliary atresia, or could she still possibly have biliary atresia? Well, she might still have it, but it's highly improbable. I'm like, well, if it's highly improbable, I want to get every single test done,
right,
without a doubt rule that out, because the genetic testing takes weeks, months sometimes.
Oh, yeah, you don't have time.
So I was like, no, we're not. No. If we're going to go do the scans and everything that's necessary. And they didn't really want to move forward with it. So that's when we skipped over to Alabama. We said, hey guys, and they got us in really quickly. And within a week, not even a week, I mean, we were in there, confirmed biliary atresia for the most part. You know, you have to confirm it with the cholangiogram during the Kasai or prior to the Kasai. But I mean, they got us all done. And then within like four days, we were scheduled for a Kasai, had a Kasai, got the call from the OR. Hey, it's biliary atresia.
Yeah.
And that was, she had the Kasai done at exactly 6 weeks old. So it took me from 4 days old of something's wrong, I think it's probably biliary atresia, to 6 weeks old to get her Kasai. I mean,
that's a long time.
It was a fight. And if I had not been so aggressive and move centers that quickly, right, and pushed so hard and reached out to my pediatric nurse practitioner family friend.
Right.
I mean, honestly, if I hadn't done all that, like, I don't think she'd be here today. Like, not tooting my own horn or anything, but like,
no, but I mean, that's like a good warning for moms. Like, trust that mom gut whenever
like something was wrong.
Know your baby, and if something's not right, don't be afraid to make that phone call. Ask that second, third, fourth, fifth question. Yeah. Like, I mean, don't ever feel
crazy, because
much
rather be crazy than have a dead baby.
Exactly. Okay, so you get you get the Kasai done. She's 6 weeks old. And then what happens to the point where you're like, okay, wait a second, this isn't working anymore?
She actually did okay. After the Kasai, she had some bowel flow. Wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't like, oh wow, she's gonna go to. I mean, I didn't imagine her being 12 with her native liver, but I didn't really want to imagine her needing a transplant about 14 months old, like she ended up needing.
Right.
But she was doing fairly well. Her bilirubin came down slowly. I think the lowest it ever got was like in the ones. So fairly decent. Good enough. I mean, there's kids that are in their teen years that their bilirubin's in the ones and they're fine. You know, they're still going strong. Had some feeding issues, just, you know, biliary atresia babies don't like to eat much. So that was an issue. She got chylous ascites at 5 months old, which is really, really rare and strange at the point that she was at. Normally it happens immediately following a surgery. It's basically where her lymphatic system got like a nick in it or a cut in it somehow, and started leaking into her abdomen. Normally it happens, like I said, after a surgery. I kind of believe that it might have just been related, and they think it might have just been her scar tissue from the Kasai had pulled and kind of stretched that lymphatic system and kind of caused it to rupture a little bit. And then so every time she was ingesting food with fats in it, the fats were I really don't understand the whole process. I mean, I kind of understood it more back then, but something about when she was ingesting fats, her lymphatic system, like I think the fats moved through the lymphatic system or something like that. And then that they were leaking into her abdomen. So she got really bad, swollen and big. And we just thought it was regular ascites until they went in and tapped her stomach. And it was, they said it was like milk coming out instead of, you know, normal ascites is clear fluid.
Yeah.
They tested it, was full lymphatic fluid. And she had to go MPO, which is nothing by mouth, for a month. She was put on octreotide, which was like, it's like a medicine, special IV medicine to help slow down
what was going on,
gut and lymphatic system. So it's, you know, just a lot. They use it for a lot of different things, but they use it specifically for this. And then she was on the TPN for a month, and so she couldn't eat anything. It's 5 months old, nothing in my mouth for a month.
Was she wanting? By this time, babies are like grabbing stuff. They're seeing like, did she have a desire for that? And you're like, no, sorry, you can't have any?
Yeah, she did. You know, like I said, we had some feeding issues, but honestly, like by that point, we weren't having really, really terrible issues yet. Like she didn't have an NG tube or anything. She was still nursing really well. When she wasn't nursing, we were having to mix what I can't remember the name of the formula now. It's been so long, but that nasty formula liver kids have to drink.
Like progestamil.
We were mixing the progestamil with my breast milk, and she was getting a high calorie formula.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't like the progestamil, but like regular breast milk, she would drink fine. It was just the progestamil she hated. Right. But yeah, she was pretty hangry. She was pretty mad about it all.
Okay, so
because the first week she didn't even get TPN. Like they had her like completely nothing. Like she just couldn't do anything for a week.
Oh.
So she went from like normal food to nothing for a week, and then she started getting the TPN.
Oh my goodness, that's so hard. It is so hard to watch. Okay, so fast forward, she's, you know, got a few bumps in the road, but pretty stable. And then fast forward to the part where of your story where they are like, okay, her liver is failing. This is not looking good. We need to move towards transplant. What was going on in your life then? And that's around when we connected, I believe, through like a Facebook group. I think you posted something, and I reached out, and here we are now.
Yeah. So after the whole like chylous ascites deal, like we were in the hospital for a month, we got out. That was at the very end of the school year, because I was a teacher at the time. So I think she got placed in like mid-April, and then by the end of May we were out. So I was out of school the whole rest of the year. Okay. Summer hits, smooth sailing, like everything's peachy, like no health issues. Of course. Like, oh, like life's so great, like we're never gonna have issues. And then a week into the new school year, she spikes a fever, and we have to go in, and she has her first bout of cholangitis. And when she has that bout of cholangitis, they do all the ultrasounds, all the testing. And at that point, they said she had no flow through her portal vein into her liver. And then, and eventually that turned into reverse flow and all those issues that you have when you have cirrhosis of the liver at some point. Like it's like a brick wall. The liver turns into like a brick. Blood flow can't flow through the porous liver because it's hard, and it backflows or it reroutes and causes the varices, the veins that can bust and cause all the bleeding issues. So at that point, they were like, oh, it kind of, I remember exactly where we were. We were in Atlanta, we were in Birmingham, standing in the hospital room, looking over this, I assume it's like a fellow. He wasn't like our main doctor. He was just one of the students, I think, looking over his shoulder, looking at labs. And he said, I think it might be time to talk transplant. And I was like,
really?
And like the room, just like all the air was out of the room, just sucked out of the room. Just, and so at that point, we moved forward with evaluation in Birmingham. But we knew we wanted to get to a larger center that did live donors. Because from the beginning, I always said that I wanted to donate to her if I was able, or if she was able to get a partial liver, I wanted to be able to donate. And so that's when I met you, because I had posted in a liver group about Pittsburgh, because for the beginning we thought we were going to take it to Pittsburgh. We're like,
that's really far when you live in the South.
Yeah. So our insurance, like I had done all the research with our insurance would pay for her to go to any center that was considered a center of excellence, which is basically any center that does liver transplants in the country. So they would pay for it as if it was, in our state. And so I was like, well, we're packing our bags and we're going to Pittsburgh. That's the best. That's where we're going to be. You couldn't have told me any different. And reached out in that group to ask about med flights and how, like, just hypothetically what it would be like if we were in Mississippi and she got the call, and how would we be able to, get to Pittsburgh in time if it was a deceased organ and stuff. And that's when you said something about Atlanta. And I had done all my research and I knew Atlanta was a great center, but they hadn't done a live donor transplant in a while. And it's not it's not that I like had to have a live donor transplant. It's just like I wanted the ace in my back pocket. Like, if we don't get a deceased organ, I want that second option, Right. So for some reason I'll let you Facebook message me that night while we were sitting in the hospital in Birmingham. And so it was really crazy. I don't know, I just felt really peaceful talking to you, and it just kind of seemed like from everything you said that it was a great center. And I already, like I said, I'd done all my research. I knew their numbers were fabulous.
Right.
I knew they had done live donor before, but weren't currently offering it. So I was like, well, maybe. And we had a son that was, she was 11 months old when we decided to go. She was really like 10 months old when we decided to go to Atlanta. So we had a son that was about, maybe it just turned 2.
Barely.
So just the idea of having to pack up life and basically move to Pittsburgh for so long, in order for her to, to recover after her transplant. And at that point, we didn't know how soon her transplant would be. It just made more sense as a family to go to Atlanta, because it's a 4.5-hour drive. And the night I was talking to you on Facebook Messenger, my husband was actually in the shower at the hospital. And I went outside, the door there. Birmingham's such a nice new center. Like it's so nice. It's big rooms, big bathroom, everything. It's like, it's great. But I'm sitting outside on a little couch. He's in the bathroom showering. Like, all the medical moms know, like when you go shower, that's where you get the chance to kind of break down and kind of lose it for a minute before, in the shower, you do your big crying, and
yes, you do.
Come on out of it and wipe your face. And even though your child's 10 months old, you still don't want them to see you so upset. I really feel like, that's one of the reasons why Adeline's done so well for so long, is we never were upset around her. We never showed,
You stay strong.
We never complained. We never made it into this big pity party. We just always tried to be positive, tried to be, you know, uplifting. If she, I mean, just since she was a baby. So anyway, so my husband was in the bathroom and taking a shower. I'm not sure if he was crying, which he probably wasn't, but he didn't cry as much as I do. But we're both pretty tough people.
Yeah.
But he said he was in the shower and had just gotten out and was, you know, brushing his teeth.
Yeah.
All that stuff. And he said he was just like praying over and over and over again, because that was the point where we were trying to make the decision on where to go. And he said it was so wild because he was praying like, God, lead us to the right center, tell us what to do, show us the way, where do we need to go for it to be, you know, your will. He said all he could hear was somebody just yelling, Choa, Choa, Choa. It was you.
So, hey, you know, I mean, God made me a talker for a reason.
And and like he said, I couldn't even hear you talking, so I didn't know what was going on. I just kept hearing Choa, Choa, Choa. And he was like, he said he came out and we had just got off the computer. He came out of the bathroom and he was like, who are you talking to? And I was talking to this mom that had reached out to me in a group about possibly, you know, Atlanta. And she was just telling me about Atlanta. He said, well, I think we need to go to Atlanta. And I was like, really? Like that quickly? Like you just changed your mind that quickly? And he's like, yeah, I feel like that's where we need to be. And I was like, okay. And I just had a really good feeling about it too. And so I said, all right. So the next morning I called Atlanta and the rest has been history.
Okay, so you get
best decision ever.
Totally the best decision ever. I was so excited that you ended up there. So when you went to Atlanta, were you thinking like we're gonna do like the deceased donor route, or did you immediately go into doing the living donor?
So we went to Atlanta the first time we stepped foot on the in the hospital in Atlanta. Was her transplant evaluation. So she was 11 months old and we went there to be evaluated. We didn't even go tour it or look at it or anything like that. We were so we knew in our gut that was where we were supposed to be. And so we trusted all those good feelings and all those, you know, those God moments that led us there. Yeah. And during transplant evaluation, I was like, I want to donate to her. I want to donate to her. And they're like, no, you don't need to. And I'm like, why? Like, why not?
Yeah.
And they're like, we get livers so fast. Like, you don't need to donate. Like, we just
get a ton.
We get a ton. Like, this is why we're so good. We get plenty of livers. Everybody gets a chance, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, well, okay, but you promised me. And then I talked to Dr. Maglioka, who was her transplant surgeon, who is like one of the most amazing people in the entire world. I love him to death.
Amazing.
And he's like, look, I love doing live donor liver transplants. Like, they're so much fun. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. He's like, they're the most fun thing ever. I would love to do one every time, but it doesn't make sense if I get a deceased organ. So, and I was like, so just promise me if.
Did you give him like a time frame?
I didn't give him a time frame. I just said, just promise me that if we don't get a deceased organ in the time frame that you guys, you know, deem acceptable, can we at least consider live donor? He said, yes, sure. I don't see it being a problem, but sure.
Okay.
So okay, I'm gonna hold you to it.
You're like, can you go ahead and test me now?
Yeah. And then that was in her evaluation was on Halloween, so no, end of October, and she was listed. She had to get some live vaccines that day, so we couldn't list her for another month. So she was listed beginning of December on her first birthday, the day after her first birthday. And then we showed up in Atlanta. You know, you go monthly unless they're sicker. You go monthly to transplant clinic. We showed up beginning of January, and where we're sitting in clinic, and Dr. Romero and JP, the fellow, and like 3 other people just stormed in the room. Like, we hadn't seen anybody yet. Like, hey, what's up? We're about to start the live donor program up. Do you want to be the first one? And I said, heck yes, I want to be the first one. Like, did not take a second to, you know,
Wow.
There was no stutter in my voice. Like I was like, yes, what do we do? Like right now. My husband wasn't a blood match. I was the only blood match. So he didn't get the chance to be tested or anything, but we moved forward with it. And she was transplanted. That was the beginning of January. And since I was the first one, it took a little bit longer than some of the people after me, because they literally had to get everything worked out between Emory and Choa, and just, I mean, they hadn't done.
For those that you don't know, like the Children's Hospital is right across the street from the adult hospital.
Yes,
and
they
so
share a tunnel.
Margaret was right. They are like right across the street. So Margaret was getting her, doing her surgery in the hospital across the street, and then they'd carry a piece of her liver over to Adeline and do her surgery next. So it's a huge deal. Okay, so what was the time frame from that, going from that transplant evaluation to the time that she was transplanted?
It was, we got the news in early January, like January 6th, I think it was, that they were going to move forward with possibly doing live donor. Okay. And they had to do some testing on her first. They had to do some, I think, MRI and a CT scan, because she also has heterotaxy. So she's malrotated. She has multiple spleens. She has interrupted intervena cava. Mm-hmm. She has a couple extra veins or blood vessels that were in her, go to and from her liver and stuff. And then she also had some issues with that portal vein because of her blood flow. Mm-hmm. So they weren't sure if it was like collapsed or there was a clot in it or what, but they wanted to look at all that stuff and just make sure it was like okay for her to get a partial liver.
Right.
And they did all that on January 6th. They admitted us that day, and we did all the testing for her. And we left maybe a day or two later with the green light, like she's good to go. And then I had to wait maybe a week or two before they called me back to say that they had everything done, or everything worked out with Emory to be able to go back and forth, because there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes with how they get the OR scheduled, insurance. I mean, there's a lot more that plays into it than just saying, hey, let's go.
Right.
Paperwork, they had to redo all the paperwork for people to fill out that were going to be donors, because it'd been 4 years since they had done it with anybody, like liver donors between Cho and Emory. So that was about a week and a half. I got the okay. They told me to go back home and get all my medical records for them, get my blood typing test done, because they, even though I knew I was a match, I had to, prove that, and paperwork, all that stuff. And then I got the phone call that said, you've been approved to be tested. So then I think my transplant evaluation testing, or not transplant, but donation, evaluation was scheduled the end of January.
Okay.
Because I think it was right before my birthday. My birthday is February 3rd. So I think it was either right before or right after it was right before my birthday. Okay. So I did that. So I went there. That was like 2 days of testing, lots of tests. My sister went with me, and we stayed at a hotel and did all that stuff at Emory. And then they meet once a month on a Friday, I'm pretty sure it was, to discuss cases and stuff, unless it's emergent, and then they meet sooner. But they met on, like 2 weeks later on her case. At that point, we had been admitted again for another infection. So she had, they had told us that she was on a long-term antibiotic at that point, like one for sepsis, and she was going to stay on it till transplant. So they want to move everything forward really quickly. And then they finally called us when we were in Atlanta and said, hey, you're a match, but go home, because it was a holiday. There was a holiday on Monday. It was like whatever the holiday is in February.
Martin Luther King.
Something. There was a holiday on, and they were like, we can't transplant you on that day because everybody's out. So they said, go home and we'll call you with a schedule. And they called us and scheduled it for about 5 days later on February 20th. So
February 20th.
It can move really quickly, like live donor workup, all of that they can get it done in like a week if it's emergent, or less. They can a few days, but they had the luxury. Adeline was stable, so.
Right. So she was good. So what are some things that others did for you during that time to help you out, that helped your family out, and that helped you? what are some things that were like a blessing during that time that, because
Oh,
you know, a lot of times people are faced with friends with, especially with all COVID stuff that's happened lately. I mean, like, or cancers or all kinds of things. So what are things that people did for you that you were like, do this for somebody else?
oh my gosh. So when Adeline was listed for her transplant, like I said, she got listed in December on her birthday. When we had come back from Christmas break, I was a teacher. I was teaching art. So I was teaching about 650 kids a week came through my classroom. I taught pre-K through second grade art, 8 classes of each grade, minus pre-K. I had less than 8 classes of them. But anyway, January rolled around. I came back from Christmas break and the flu was awful that year. I mean, it was terrible. And at that point, we didn't know about the live donor workup yet. And I didn't know when she was going to get the call. I just knew, like, if she got the flu in the state she was in, it would be really bad for her. Or if she was sick with a fever or something, we got the call, we'd have to, you know, turn down the liver.
Yeah.
So I went to my principal and I mean, I was crying and I said, Mr. Hill, like, I want to be here. I want to work. I said, but I don't think that I can, you know, in good conscience, stay here around all this flu and illness.
Yeah.
I told him why about, you know, getting turned down. We'd have to turn down livers if she was sick and all this stuff. And I said, and I don't want to put you guys out. I said, I would resign right now. I said, but my insurance is her primary insurance. And I had called Atlanta and I said, so what would happen if I quit my job and I lost my insurance and my husband's insurance ended up being her primary, which was her secondary at the time. They said that would be fine, but she would be inactive on the transplant list for a few weeks until they got all that worked out with insurance, because it, you know, it doesn't happen overnight. You know, you got to get all that approved and stuff. So I went to him crying. I was like, I can't, you know, lose this insurance. I said, you know, I can quit and I can pay for Cobra. I can do all this stuff. Like, if you want me to quit because you need this job filled, like, I will do that. And he said, we're going to do everything we can in our power to make this work for you. And he was able to, I mean, word just kind of got around the school and enough people donated days for me to make it through the rest of the school year with a full paycheck, with, you know, not a worry in the world. Like, all I had to do was worry about taking care of her. And it ended up being the biggest blessing because I ended up being her, you know, her live donor. So I couldn't have gone back anyway. After her transplant.
That's so huge. So what are some other things that, like, I mean, what a precious gift for all of your coworkers and teachers to give up their, you know, leave time so that you can have that time off to, well, donate a portion of your liver to save your daughter's life, which is.
And they were so wonderful. And like, they had t-shirts made and they would hold prayer meetings in the morning for her. And I'd just like randomly be in the hospital, you know, having like one of the worst episodes of something going on, you know, with her. And it'd be 7:30 in the morning. I'd just be sitting in the special care unit and just bawling my eyes out crying because something had gone wrong that night and we had to call like SWAT in or something. And I just randomly just look at my phone. I'd get a text message of 40 plus women standing in the entryway of the school, holding hands, praying for her, like during, you know, during the worst moments. And it's just like, they just always knew, you know.
It's so incredible. So would you encourage other people to let people in on your story and on your pain when you're going through that stuff?
Definitely. I was always very, prior to Biliary Atresia, you know, I had social media and I had friends and close friends and stuff, but I was never one to just like really put my life out there. Never really felt like anybody cared that much. Like, I mean, hey, here's a picture of a cute kid here and there, but like, you know, like, my life isn't anything special to like share all the time on Facebook. So I just didn't post that much stuff. But it was almost like from the very beginning, like I knew we needed like a lot of prayer. And that was, you know, my main reason for it was to get as many prayers as possible for her, because I mean, without all of those prayers, like we wouldn't, I mean, I wouldn't be telling the story today, you know?
Right. I know, I'm the same way. When with everything happened with Corey, I think I felt weird about making a page for her and putting it out there. But once I did, it really was the best thing because I could brain dump all that was going on this one place. people didn't feel they were invading our space that much either, of texting and trying to want to know information, because there's so many, there's some trolls, but for the most part, people are really awesome in this great nation that we live in, and they really do care and they want to help out. So, okay, well, now you got through transplant, and you've had people help you out. So how has life been after transplant, and how old's Adeline now, and what is she totally into now?
Oh my gosh. So if you had told me during, those dark moments how good life would be now, I mean, you told me, you did,
Yeah.
but I mean,
it's hard to believe when you're in the midst of the pain.
It's so hard to believe how good life post-transplant with a baby, toddler, young kid can actually be, because we've just been so fortunate. Like she spent 11 days in the hospital, and then we got released to the Ronald McDonald House, and she just, it was like she woke up from transplant was just a new person. A new kid. Like she literally
did she recover faster than you did?
Yes, she did. She did. I was it was rough stuff for me. And I got out of the hospital quicker than her, but she was
raring and ready to go.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And we were in the Ronald McDonald House for a couple weeks, but I think it was from the day we left Mississippi for Atlanta for her transplant to the day we pulled back into Mississippi was exactly 1 month.
That was how we were too.
1 month.
Yeah. It's amazing how that 1 month all of a sudden, and now your life is totally turned around. So what would you say is your hope for Adeline, and what would you say to encourage other moms that are at the beginning stages of the journey?
Oh my gosh. So, I've been doing a few different things with someone that's writing a book about trials that women have gone through and stuff. And one of the big things that I talked to her about was when you find yourself in a tragedy or something, traumatizing, like, having a severely ill, chronically ill child that needs a liver transplant, that, you got to really kind of look at it like it's a season in life. Like it's not forever. And it's just very important to not to unpack your bags and to live in that season, because that's not going to be good forever,
Right.
Like it's okay to, be in the moment and process it all and stuff. But don't just let that consume your world. Like look to the future, look to people that have been in situations like you before. Look at the positive.
Right.
I tell a lot of new liver moms, like what you told me, and I'd say a very wise liver mom once told me that the families that have the successful liver transplants aren't the ones you hear about post-transplant. They are out living their life. They're living that normal life that the transplant has given them.
Right.
The ones that you hear a lot about that are posting a lot on social media are the ones that have had a lot of the complications. And it seems like there's more kids having complications than success stories, but that's not really the case. Like, because the happy-go-lucky families that have never stepped back foot in the hospital post-transplant, that's not their world anymore. They've unpacked their bags way farther down the road, and they're living in a different season, know, and they're not updating their Facebook pages, and they're not talking all about it all. So I've really taken that to heart, and I try to always, like when I post on social media about anything about Adeline, like I try to always do my little hashtags, like life after transplant, better not bitter, things that like just to remind myself and to remind other families like what we've been through, and how, like, look how good it is now.
It's gonna be worth it if you just press on and press through it. It's totally and get better, not bitter. I love that I love that, because you can get so bitter when you're in the midst of it. And it's not that those aren't valid. And I'm not saying just sweep those feelings under. I mean, we all that we're human, we're going to have those feelings, but we don't need to camp out there. My mom would always say, listen, you better put your running shoes on, because we are running through this valley. We are not going to stop here. Yeah. We are going to keep walking, and we're going to walk fast, and we're going to run, but we are not setting up camp. So
yeah, I like it. You can't live there.
No, we cannot. I cannot live there. So
if you live there, then that's your reality, and it can't, I mean, I really believe in like when you like speaking truth into the universe and stuff, like don't let bad, ill thoughts cross your lips, like if you think them, like shove them back. Like all the times I thought, like, what if, don't speak them out loud, because you're bringing it into like the real world.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I only spoke good, like, this is what's going to happen. It's going to be great.
Right. We're going to get through this. We're going to fight. We're going to live. You have to almost just declare the truth and and also I remember like learning, I had to be careful who I would let in my camp as well. Like if there was a lot of naysayers or negativity or woe is me, or this is all, I'm like, I love you, but we can hang out later when I get through this. I cannot have you in my tribe right now. So.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
lots of unfollowing and stuff has happened in my world with people that just can't, I mean, right. I'm sorry, but if you go through what we've all gone through and you get a second chance at life, and your child is walking around with an organ that was not theirs when they were born, and they are thriving,
right,
there's nothing to be upset about.
Yep. It gives you a whole new perspective on life. Mm-hmm. That's for sure. And what's important. So, all right. Well, Margaret, we have Corey's pajama drive. We are gathering PJs, and I know it was so cute. I would get pictures of Adeline and some of the PJs that our friends had helped us collect. So it's one of our favorite things that we get to be a part of and continue to give back. I think I'm going to work on this year, getting either a tag to attach to the PJs, because I'm like, I want to see the other kids who are getting some of these. So thank you for
loved our PJs that Corey's given us. So
no, they're so fun.
We love donating to the PJ drive too. I think last year I just had to send some money because I was just so much going on. But
you know what? It's so good though, because people have been Venmoing, which anybody who's watching this, if you made it all the way to the end, you can Venmo or PayPal, and then it'll all be in the links of the post. So because Corey loves to go shopping, and I love it now that she's old enough to understand what it means to do something for someone else. So it's so fun taking her. She's like, this is a good deal. And I'm like, Corey, that one's $10. We need to get down to the five. We got to get the most for the money that people.
I know, that's why I feel like I just need to give you my money, because you get them way better deals than I do.
Oh yeah. We're all about finding the deals. So she's like, I don't want to do math today. I was like, I tell you what, your math is going to be happening at Walmart today. Yeah. We got this much money. How many things can we get? This much money?
That's hilarious. That's so sweet.
All right. Well, thank you, Margaret, for sharing your story. It's always, it's good to see you face to face, and well, at least via Zoom.
I know. Face to face as everybody's getting right now.
I know. This is as good as this is going to get. All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching, and have a great night or day whenever you watch this. Take care.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night. All right. Let me stop.